Welcome to our deep dive, and this one is really unsettling. We're going to a small village in Serbia, the setting for, well, a real-life thriller. 5 bodies completely drained of blood, each with 2 puncture wounds on their necks. No blood at the crime scenes. And even worse, 4 people have just vanished.
It seems to defy logic. Even experienced investigators are searching for answers. What we're exploring today is based on interviews with a local doctor there, Dr. Markovic, and a leading forensic scientist, Dr. Petrovic. They were featured in a Serbian podcast. It's called El Misterio de las Caravers sin Sangre, The Mystery of the Bloodless Corpses.
Wow. Gives me goosebumps already. Dr. Markovic has been practicing medicine in this village for years. He paints a chilling picture of the fear. It's gripping this once peaceful community. He describes how these bodies are turning up in very public places, the town square, a church courtyard, places where anyone could stumble upon them.
This public display, it's interesting. A perpetrator who's not concerned with being caught or wants to instill fear and chaos.
Like a message. And Dr. Markovic points out, it's not just the lack of blood that's got everyone baffled. The wounds on the necks are so precise, almost surgical, but no tools.
The precision of the wounds. A lot of questions. See? Analyzing them. For microscopic traces, or the absence of certain tissue damage, it could tell us a lot about the weapon and the skill level. But no tool marks. It implies a level of expertise. Impressive and disturbing.
It makes you wonder what kind of person.
Yeah.
That level of skill. And so brazen.
And that's only one piece. Even more perplexing is the complete lack of blood at the scenes. Exsanguination, the complete draining of blood. It's lengthy, messy. To do it without leaving any trace behind, it'd require control and knowledge. Very rare.
Almost impossible, right? And then, the missing people. 4 individuals who disappeared without a trace, families desperate for answers, and some have reported. Truly bizarre occurrences before their loved ones vanished.
Yes. Those missing person cases. More complexity to this intricate mystery. One family, they reported hearing strange, almost clawing sounds on their roof just before their daughter went missing. Others, shadowy figures lurking near their homes right before a family member disappeared. Anecdotal, yes, but they feed into the growing sense of fear and uncertainty.
You mentioned the difficulty of achieving exsanguination. Without a trace, could it be the fact that the victims went missing from their homes, where there might be more opportunity for concealment? The perpetrator had more time, more control.
That's a sharp observation. It's possible. The circumstances surrounding the disappearances, they allowed more control and concealment. Compared to the bodies found in public, raises a question. Are we dealing with one perpetrator using different methods of multiple individuals?
It's like a puzzle, where the pieces keep changing shape. And of course, Serbia, a region with a long history of vampire folklore.
It's natural to turn to familiar narratives when faced with the unknown, deeply ingrained beliefs. They're shaping the way the villagers are interpreting this. The stories of vampires, passed down through generations, they offer a framework. Supernatural, yes, but for understanding something that defies rational explanation.
So while the experts search for scientific explanations, the villagers, ancient fears and superstitions, it seems like this case, a collision between the rational and the irrational, the world we think we know, and the shadows just beyond our understanding. We're back, deeper into this mystery of the bloodless corpses, Serbia. Complex case, challenging scientific understanding, and those age-old fears.
You got it. Fascinating study in how fear and logic intersect when you see events that defy explanation.
The villagers' reactions. Dr. Markovic described a community paralyzed. People are putting garlic and crosses everywhere, standing guard at the cemetery at night.
Power of folklore. Deeply these beliefs run, especially when facing a threat they can't explain. Traditional responses to vampires seem irrational to us, maybe, but they offer control when people feel powerless.
Do you think it's truly influencing the investigation? Or just primal fear?
That's a good question. I think it's both. Folklore provides a framework for understanding when things are unexplainable, comforting when it's terrifying. But it can create biases. People interpret evidence through those pre-existing beliefs.
How do investigators navigate that, respecting those beliefs, and maintaining a scientific approach?
Sensitivity. Cultural understanding. Dr. Petrovic. He's rooted in science, but he recognizes the cultural context, dismissing the villagers' fears as superstition. Counterproductive.
And Dr. Markovic, the community, he's in a unique position. Bridge that gap.
Exactly. Long-standing relationships, trust and access. An outsider wouldn't have that. He's not just asking questions, listening, observing, understanding the nuances.
Speaking of details, one of the most chilling aspects open graves in the cemetery. Not just open, some. Disturbed from the inside.
Yeah, it gives me chills. Feeds into the vampire myth, no question. But
Mm-hmm.
forensics, all possibilities. Could there be a natural explanation? Animal activity, soil erosion. Could that look like a disturbance from within?
Valid point.
Hmm.
But wouldn't a doctor be able to see subtle signs of that? Animal activity or natural decomposition? Dr. Markovich, he knows death, and even he's leaning towards something unnatural.
You're right, Dr. Markovich. Years of experience, he finds this unusual. It lends weight to the idea that something more deliberate, more sinister, is happening.
And the reports of strange lights, figures in the forest, connected to the graves, or separate, but equally unsettling.
It's possible the sightings are related to the cemetery, people going into the forest at night, fear, wanting to protect their community. But other possibilities, misidentification, people exploiting the situation, create more panic.
Every new piece of information, another layer to this complex puzzle. Reality and folklore, blurring even further.
This case challenges our perception of what's possible, forces us to grapple with the unknown, a stark reminder. Even in our modern world, mysteries still exist that defy easy explanation.
So where do we go from here? How do we untangle this? Science, folklore, and fear. Okay, final part. This mystery of the bloodless corpses, Serbia. Chilling details, the village, the folklore. But still, what is really happening?
Haunts the investigators and the villagers. This case, it's unique. Science and the supernatural.
Back to the experts, Dr. Markovich and Dr. Petrovich. How are they trying to unravel this?
Dr. Markovich, he's in the community. He blends his medical knowledge with the culture, gathering villager testimonies, looking for connections, patterns, shared experiences, things that might have been overlooked.
That's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Genuine observations mixed with fear and speculation.
Yeah.
How do you know if it's reliable?
It is a balancing act. Dr. Markovich's relationships in the village give him trust and access. He wouldn't have that as an outsider. Not just asking questions, listening, observing, understanding the nuances of the stories.
Dr. Petrovich, our science guy, what's he doing?
Physical evidence, or the lack of it, looking for any trace, anything unusual. That might explain how the blood was taken so completely and cleanly. No tool marks. On the puncture wounds, that's interesting to him. Suggests a very precise method, maybe even unorthodox.
Are there any medical conditions?
Yeah.
Rare bleeding disorders. That could explain this.
Yeah.
Something that looks like a sanguination, but isn't.
That's a good one. Conditions that affect blood clotting, internal bleeding. But they don't really explain this. No blood at all at the scenes. Precise puncture wounds points to something deliberate and very perplexing.
Not a medical condition. We're left with a perpetrator with extraordinary medical knowledge.
Yeah.
Skill or something beyond what we understand.
Yes, and that's what's captivating about this case. It makes us think about the limits of our knowledge and consider possibilities that seem fantastical, impossible even.
The disturbed graves? What could it be? Grave robbers? Something more?
Grave robbing, it's possible, but it doesn't explain why it looks like. The disturbance came from inside the coffins. Animals, we talked about that. Dr. Markovich doesn't think so.
So, something or someone is coming out of these graves. Is it connected to the bloodless bodies? Or is this something else, just as unsettling?
The big question. The bloodless bodies. The missing people. The graves. The sightings in the forest. It's all connected somehow. Baffling and terrifying.
Like a Gothic novel.
Yeah.
Reality and superstition, all mixed up.
You got it. We want rational explanations. But this case, it reminds us there are still parts of our world, shadows in our minds that we haven't explored. Maybe we can't explain them.
Sobering, but fascinating too. We might never know what happened with the bloodless corpses, but the journey itself, thinking about the possibilities, that's what makes this so compelling.
And as we wrap this up, keep an open mind, question what you think you know, embrace the mysteries out there. Because when we chase these mysteries, try to understand the unknown, that's when we discover how curious we are and how limitless our imagination is.
The Deep Dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep exploring.